thinking a Harry Potter book or a Ouija board is real. And again, Larry Becraft is a great lawyer and patriot. He's talked about this. There are real things to fight these crooks, and they are lawless. But again, just because the system's lawless, it still has the establishment mantle to it. And we're breaking through that. But you just don't fight it with whole cloth new theorem.
That's been a big problem, Alex. And when people go into the courthouse and take this system upon themselves and do what, we're hearing about now, another horror story is these administrative processes that people are filing in the land records, and they're filing, they're apparently trying to take something to the international court. And like the Hague doesn't care about this stuff. The problem that we're
don't you just I mean there are procedures to sue banks when they've lied, or isn't it where they violated the paperwork and violated your rights at the original time of signing? I mean, there's a lot of ways to go after them.
Well, we've seen attorneys do non-disclosure suits because nobody was told that MERS was there at the time and what they were for. People went in and they were so interested in getting the keys, they just signed their life away. You literally could have put in there, borrower agrees to give us his firstborn 1 year after this loan, is in force and effect. And they would just sign.
And a fraudulent contract is null and void.
Well, yeah, but they don't read it, and that's the problem. People do not read and understand what they're signing. They go to the closing table, they want the keys. They've tried like the Dickens to get a loan mod, and why would you do a loan modification with a bank that doesn't even own your note? That's another big problem we're having. But
okay, well, just give us a smattering, because I've had a bunch of these lawyers on before, a smattering of things that are winning in court, things that are obviously it's all in the book, but things to look for.
Well, if you see documents filed in the land records, and we see most of the problems having to do with assignments, this is a big problem, because when they finally do come out of the closet, these people on Wall Street that are playing in the derivatives markets, and they record a document in the land records, generally we're seeing that it's 5 or 6 years past the actual date the note should have been conveyed into the pool. And this is a big problem. And the big arguments that are being won now is arguments having to do with whether or not this falls under Uniform Commercial Code at Section 3 or whether it falls under Sections 8 and 9. Because Sections 8 and 9, basically, for those unlearned, have to do with non-negotiable instruments. And so when I look at these situations and I see that a note has been taken out of the realm of an Article 3 UCC and put into Article 9 and has been pandered on Wall Street and sold and resold and the borrower has no idea, then that in of itself creates issues that attorneys are
Sure. Also, they're successful, but I know you know all the finer details, but elaborate on this point and then the others that you're about to cover. What about where they have lawyers for the banks come in and lie and say that they have all the proof and chain of custody and ownership and all of this, and they're not? I mean, can't you also get them on that?
There have been movements in the states now, specifically New York and Nevada. Nevada came out with AB Assembly Bill 284, which basically says that if you file phony documents in a court case in that state, and it can be shown that these documents are not legitimate, that the attorney could be disbarred and be facing jail time. It's a felony.
But wasn't that already on the books?
It was just...
It's like saying pass laws...
last year.
But it's like saying pass a law in Texas, the TSA can't grab your genitals. There's already laws that you can't do that. There's got to be laws in all the states. I've seen some of them where you get in trouble for filing false documents.
Well, yes,
that's fraud.
There are
perjury.
Yeah, we have qui tam actions that have been filed all over the country, specifically in California.
Can't somebody do that who's not even a party? That's what that is, right?
Well, yeah, the qui tam basically is a whistleblower action, and they basically go out and say, okay, I declare that I have information, and based on that information, I'm filing a suit that all of these things are false claims. Those in themselves are legal, but the attorneys I'm talking to that filed these claims years ago are now running into problems with them. And it all falls back on UCC Article 9 as to whether or not these are negotiable instruments under 3 or non-negotiable instruments under 9.
Most of the victories against the bankers, where is it successful?
Agency. The thing we're seeing now is if you can defeat and you can split or separate the relationship between the entities that are filing these documents and the entities that claim to hold the note, if you can split these things, in other words, when the trusts themselves come back in, and if you look in your assignment and you see an assignment that says this note has been assigned to, and there's some gobbledygook all the way through, formerly known as successor by merger to as trustee for, and then you see a number like 2007-HE5 or anything like that, a combination of numbers. You probably are dealing with a trust that has a pooling and servicing agreement, and this is what these attorneys, like Mark Dan, the former Ohio AG, who's winning a lot of cases in Ohio, and he's going in and he's dissecting the pooling and servicing agreement and running it into court, and the judges, even though they're not focused on securitization per se, New York trust law has a foundation in these securitizations.
Well, I mean, the system has to write this or it will destroy confidence in everything.
Exactly. And people are starting to get a little disgusted with it, especially when they find out stuff.
A little disgusted.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right now, we have to use a logical head, Alex. We can't go out and do some of the stuff that's going to get you thrown in jail. We've got to be reasonable with this, and we've got to take this thing, and there is a methodology to this, a method to the madness.
Now, what about, and we're going to go to break and come back and take calls, what about the system countering? I know they're trying to get some state laws passed to say mirrors is okay. I know they're trying to get the feds to have an agreement with attorney generals. I know that they're trying to kind of cobble over and paper over this. How is the system countering this? How are they trying to keep the scam going?
Well, the bigger picture is the lack of prosecution. That in of itself, when you don't put the bad boys in jail, the dirty work keeps going on. So, we come back to what we discussed first about Lanny and Eric and all the boys at the DOJ who used to be, basically partners with Covington and Burling, this law firm in D.C. that wrote the opinion letter for MERS. When you look at the bigger picture and you look at this 27-page white paper that was just released by Government Accountability Institute, they actually footnote all of the little causes of action that coulda, shoulda, woulda, but never happened because of the relationship between the DOJ, the SEC, and Covington. But
now, isn't that just the moral authority of the public waking up and juries and things that are involved, and the fact that now it's almost like a public tort warning that now they've been told stop doing this? Does that add any weight to stop them?
It does in certain jurisdictions. We notice that, like New York, for example, a lot of the judges in the 5 boroughs, like Arthur Schack, they won't put up with this stuff, and they know robo-signing when they see it. I virtually, if Arthur Schack would come to work for me, he'd probably be one of the best fraud spotters in the country.
Again, we go to robo-signing. That's been ruled.
It's still going on.
It's been ruled a fraud.
It's still
going on. And Obama's using a robot to sign now.
He has as a matter of fact, a robo-signer on his deed. His mortgage in Illinois.
But he's signing bills with a robot now, too.
He probably has a signing machine. A lot of them do. And they're using signing machines to sign the robo-sign.
Well, no, he'll be in Hawaii and just say, sign that bill. He shouldn't be able to do that.
Well, if it's not in front of a notary, go figure, because notaries require the president.
Yeah, it's all, look, I know what's going on here. Sure, the globalists are clouding all this so they can bring in a new system later they control and just go cashless and get rid of the old county deed systems. I'm telling you, they screw things up, tie all their fraud to everything, make it too big to fail, hold us hostage, and then roll out more tyranny as the solution.
They would like to put us on a national registry, but I think the states aren't buying it. That's the one thing, remember.
Thank God for the founders. It's the separation of powers.
Exactly. And this is a problem when you're dealing with issues where the county land records have been there since time began in this country, and now you have an electronic data.
It's one of the few things that works great in government because it's ancient.
Exactly.
It's been figured out.
Exactly. And so when you have a system that comes in and runs totally juxtaposed to what we know to be true and factual.
Yeah, we'll take our 1,000-year-old system. We don't want your little fancy dandy foreign banker flim-flam, Bernie Madoff, Ken Lace, El Scamo system. We're going to come back with calls straight ahead. Amazing, and I mean amazing interview. Clouded Titles, Dave Krieger. Straight ahead, get it at InfoWarsShop.com. Dave Krieger is our guest. We're taking your phone calls. Big Sis sued for a cadre of women. She only hires women to top positions. Well, she likes women. I like women too. But the point is that the men were told they were slaves, basically. So lawsuits are flying. We ought to make her a Supreme Court justice. It'd be nice. You couldn't tell who was who. Whether it was Sotomayor or Kagan or her, we could just kind of like, I mean, it could be like a game where you kind of spin the 3 around and go, which one is which, and you can't really tell. Maybe we could cross all 3 of them, make a new clone. That'll be our new ruler. You can tell the leader, though, has a little white spot in their hair. Most supervillains do have like kind of that little mark. I don't know what the deal is. Okay, we're taking your phone calls here, talking about the giant fraud. And before you leave, because you started getting into it, but we never got into it, before you leave, get into the Justice Department and our loving Attorney General, because he's a big part of this.
Well,
being a good fellow from Chicago, we're going to get to it.
I understand. Well, basically the word that's out on the street now through some of the reports that we're seeing, and we review these things on a daily basis. We're looking at issues between the DOJ and Covington and Burling, namely that the Eric Holder, Lanny Brewer were employees or partners, if you will, of Covington and Burling, which issued the opinion letter for MERS and MERS Corp. So when you have the DOJ tied to the entity that the banks basically use to transfer all their notes on Wall Street and play in the derivatives markets, you have some real issues.
Well, no, that's the word. I mean, you get the select groups, the law firms, the accounting firms, Arthur Anderson, and then you can do whatever you want. People ask, well, how can Mitt Romney not pay hardly any taxes? Well, he's part of the special club. And that's how the payoffs work. Let's go to some phone calls. Jim in West Virginia, you're on the air with our guest. Welcome, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, two things utterly amaze me at their insanity. You can make every payment, but you never get the wet copy after you make all the payments of the note. So it still isn't yours. And the banks collect and or foreclose based on a worthless copy of the original valuable note. Now, judges know the difference between a note and its copy. The copy is a forgery, for crying out loud, just like there's a difference between a Federal Reserve note and a Xerox copy of the currency. Can you comment on this criminal insanity on the part of the judges? And I'll just listen.
Well, the biggest part of the problem that we're seeing now is, when people bring stuff into court, the judges basically buy what evidence has been presented that hasn't been objected to. The bigger problem we're running into is a lot of people that go in there that get out-procedured by the banks, and I think this is where the largest part of what we're seeing is the problem. Not that, pro se litigation hasn't won. We had a case, Reed versus Fannie Mae in California, that just came out where she got a summary judgment. But
to be clear, if no one objects, they could go in there basically with the back of a Cracker Jack box and say, here's my proof.
Yep, bring anything they want. And the court will accept it as long as you don't object to it. This is the general game plan. And a lot of people do not understand when they go into court that you can literally get out-procedured because these people have a specific game plan. We have networks across the country of foreclosure mills that all band together and share information in a big way. And I talk about that in the book. And so when you see all of this information,
it's called organized crime.
Well, you call it what you want, but the fact of the matter is it's network sharing. And this is what we're trying to do on our end, is we're coming back and we have a network of about 40 attorneys that have all banded together and share information, and this network is growing. And there are significant players in this thing that are actually winning cases.
No, like you said, former attorney generals of states and people like that. Thank you so much, caller. We're going to go to break and come back with more, as we got to go to break. There's not time to get to a caller right now. But Truth Warrior, Mike, Nathan, and others, we're going to be talking to you. Toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. I'm Alex Jones, and you're listening to the GCN Radio Network, GCNlive.com. There's a ton of amazing news, by the way, on the GCNlive.com website. Be sure and check that out. And then, of course, there's also the site where we're streaming video of this right now. If you'd like to watch us, prisonplanet.tv or infowarsnews.com. All right, if you just joined us, we're rolling into the third hour here on this Friday edition. Dave Krieger is our guest. The book is Clouded Titles. We're taking your phone calls. Let's move to them quick. 30 more minutes of calls here, then a bunch of news. And my little visit with a drone today, yeah, it happened. And I got footage of it to prove it. Let's talk to Mike in New Mexico. Mike, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey, I got a question for you. I don't know about these reverse mortgages. I'm hearing them air a lot on commercials, and it looks like they're attacking a lot of senior citizens. So if you guys can elaborate on that, something to look out for your mom or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great question. They're telling old folks, live in your house till you die, but get some money to live now on the house. In a way, maybe that's a good idea because the IRS will try to steal old people's houses unless it's all clouded, but I'm not giving advice. I mean, I'm sure that's probably pretty predatory. What's going on?
Well, reverse mortgages, and we had a question on that on another program that I was on, and the woman basically was concerned about the fact, as you stated, Alex, that she was wondering whether or not this was a smart move for somebody that's getting up in years. And normally, when I think of people going into retirement, I'm thinking of people that are trying to literally pay off their mortgage and find a passive income stream, but